Joining us now is Mort Klein. Mort, thank you so much for taking the time. I remember walking the streets of Jerusalem with you, and
Yes.
you and I have been texting together. You are the president of the Zionist Organization of America. Mort, welcome to the program.
It's great to be with a Bible-believing Zionist who feels the truth deep in his heart. It's an honor to be with you.
So, Mort, what is going on right now? I mean, you have a lot of wisdom, and you've been around for quite some time. I'm getting attacks from every possible direction, and it is a obviously emotional time. You've been through a lot of different chapters and fights in the fight for Israel and the fight for the West. Walk us through this, because I really respect your advice and your wisdom. What's going on right now?
One of the reasons you can see so many ignorant college kids and ignorant adults throughout the world demonstrating in favor of Hamas, a Nazi organization whose charter explicitly calls for the murder of every Jew on earth and the destruction of Israel, is because these people don't know the truth about the Arab-Islamic war against Israel. And I blame, frankly, Israeli officials, rabbis, and Jewish leaders for not telling the truth about the so-called occupation, for example. In many of these rallies, you have kids screaming because there's an occupation and a colonization. Hamas can do anything to stop this occupation. What is the truth, though, that they don't know, that none of the Jewish leaders ever talk about? There is no occupation. This is the big lie. Occupation means you stole someone else's sovereign land. In 1917, after World War I, Britain legally controlled all of this area called Palestine, which was not a country. It was a region. Palestine was never a country. And in 1937, they offered 95% of this area to the Arabs for a state, the Palestinian Arabs, 5% to the Jews. The Arabs said no. In 1948, they offered half of the rest of Palestine for a state for the Arabs and a state for the Jews, and the Arabs said no. So there was never an occupation of Palestine. There's no Palestinian kings or queens. There's no Palestinian currency. In fact, the word Palestine is a Roman name. It's not even an Arab name. How is this an Arab area? But it's named, it's used with a Roman name, and the Arabs can't even pronounce the letter P. They can't even say Palestine. They say Palestine. And Israel has given away all of Gaza over the last 30 years, 40% of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. That's where 99% of the Arabs live. They have their own parliament, their own newspapers, their own media, their own police, their own businesses. They run their own lives except security. So there is no occupation, not to mention that in the last 20 years, the Palestinian Arabs have been offered a state on virtually all of the disputed areas, and it's been turned down every time, 4 times in the last 20 years. They've been offered a state 8 times in the last 80 years, and it's been turned down every time. When I ask prime ministers, how could they turn down your extraordinary offers? They say, because we have a clause they say you must remove. And the clause is, we accept Israel as a Jewish state. They won't sign that. And the prime ministers have told me they have to remove a clause that says you have to limit the number of Palestinian Arabs to come into Israel to 150,000. They said, we want no limit. We want to bring millions into Israel, in other words, to end Israel as a Jewish state. These facts, which I just briefly laid out, is not known by these students, is not known by the people rallying in Europe. And I blame, frankly, Israel, as I said, Jewish leaders and rabbis for not making this clear. I speak to colleges all the time. When I lay out what I just laid out in more detail, they're in shock. They can't believe this. They've never heard this. Another thing they don't realize that would make them hesitant to be supporting Hamas is that the Palestinian Authority pays terrorists, Arab terrorists, lifetime pensions to murder Jews. They spend $400 million a year to pay Arabs lifetime pensions to murder Jews. The more Jews they murder, the higher their pension. They name schools, streets, and sports teams after Jew killers and Christian killers. Taylor Force was a Christian walking in Tel Aviv who they murdered as a Christian. And they also don't realize that only this very week, Mohammed al-Zahar, the co-founder of Hamas, made a speech, it's on the internet, saying, we want the world to know the Jews of Israel are only first. After we kill all the Jews of Israel, then we will kill the despicable Christians. He said it last week. And after that, we will impose Islamic law on the entire world. If these students and other people understood these things and much more, they would be much more hesitant to want to be rallying in support of the Palestinian Arabs, whose polls this very week show that 85% of the Palestinian Arabs support murdering Jews and support Hamas and support destroying Israel. 85%. So it's not just Hamas, these terrible leaders. It's the Palestinian Arab people themselves who are really a grotesque culture that promotes murder and violence and rape and torture.
And so, Mort, I want to zero in on one thing. The students here in America, they live awfully pampered, upper middle class, privileged lives, many of them. They go to university campuses where everything is provided to them. And yet of all the causes they decide to align with, they align with people that could be best described as savage beasts from the pit of hell, engaging in outright demonic activity against a sovereign nation. You've been doing this for quite some time. My analysis is that when you train young people to view everything through an oppressor-oppressed type lens, they will then use that with the Israel, Hamas, Israel, Gaza type lens, I suppose. And the public opinion polls that you mentioned, I just want to make sure everyone is clear. 89% of Palestinians support terror groups known for suicide attacks, while 75% approve of the October 7th massacre. Now, I want to be very clear here, Mort. Just reemphasize that for our audience. 3 out of 4 people in Gaza support what these people did on October 7th. What does that mean morally?
It means this is a horrific culture whose Koran teaches enmity toward Jews and toward Christians, I might add. And the Hadith to the Koran explicitly calls for the murder of every single Jew. So this is, they're really, I'm pained to say, following what the Koran, what their holy book teaches them. And the holy book teaches that the infidel, the non-Muslim, if they don't convert to Islam, should be beheaded, the women should be raped. This is all in the Koran. And so I just see that we need, as the president of Egypt, President al-Sisi said a few years ago, they need a reformation of Islam, where they make it clear that no longer should these types of edicts in the Koran be followed. We need a revolution. Only on a recent 2 weeks ago, Al-Azhar University, which is the West Point of the Islamic training ground in Cairo, Egypt, they issued an edict several weeks ago ordering, you must go and kill every Jew in Israel. Can you believe this? Al-Azhar University. Why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post? Why aren't politicians screaming about this? Why aren't Jews screaming about this? It is not only about Al-Azhar, but why aren't they screaming about what Mohammed al-Zahar, the co-founder of Hamas, said about killing all the Jews and then killing all the Christians? We are protecting this terrible culture, and we're protecting a religion that needs reformation, as the president of Egypt said in a speech at Al-Azhar University a few years ago. He said it himself.
Yeah, and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser was on our program a couple of weeks ago talking about the need for a reformation within Islam. So, Mort, I want to make sure I'm very clear because my comments have been clipped. Now, I'm unapologetic for what I said. I just think it's incomplete. I said some of the worst left-wing ideas have been supported by Jewish Americans. To be fair, though, Jewish Americans have also supported conservative group Sheldon Adelson for years as the #1 Republican donor, so they leave that part out. But Mort, I want to, just 1 minute remaining, we could talk after the break. You mentioned that some, not all, but some more secular Jewish Americans are not even on the side of Israel here. and they're also funding some of the groups that are destabilized. Can you help me understand that? Because I think some people in our audience are confused about that.
Yes, well, because of the history of the Jewish people for several thousand years of persecution, hatred, pogroms, holocausts, we are very frightened of the non-Jewish world because of what Jews have experienced. And so we are desperate to say we are with you, non-Jewish world. They become Democrats because they want programs to allegedly help people, even though they really don't. They want to have national health insurance, all sorts of programs to help people, thinking, I'm a Jew, I'm trying to help you, I want programs to help you. These left-wing views by Jews are out of fear, not out of ideology or principle. They're afraid of the non-Jewish world because of our history with the non-Jewish world. And that's why they desperately want to show people we support non-Jews. That's why so many Jews support a Palestinian state, which would be a Hamas-Iran terrorist state. They're basically saying, look, we support a state for you. We want to help you. We want what you want. Don't hate us. Don't kill us. It is fear that Jews have because of our history. It is not a principled ideology.
That is a great answer. So, Mort, are you afraid that some people get caught up in left-wing politics? They overuse the slur or the slander of anti-Semite. It is frustrating for me, for example, to receive that criticism, because unfortunately, overusing a label then makes the label mean nothing. Your thought, Mort Klein.
The term anti-Semitism or anti-Semite should only be used when it's clearly anti-Semitism and anti-Semite. Criticizing Israeli policies in a legitimate way is not anti-Semitism. Criticizing American policies in a legitimate way is not anti-Americanism. So one has to be very careful. That word has been overused, and one has to be very careful. I might add, if you want to learn more about this, you mentioned, please go to ZOA.org, our website, and at our gala December 3rd, we're going to have tremendous speakers there talking about all of this. But I don't want Joe Biden to not be mentioned in this conversation. He is an enormous factor in this extraordinary massacre, rape, torture, and murder of 1,400 Jews. Joe Biden, 6 weeks ago, gave Iran, who funds Hamas and Hezbollah, $6 billion. Last week, in the midst of all this, he just gave Iran another $10 billion. Iran, which was on its knees under Trump, which had only $4 billion in reserves in the bank, because Biden not only gave these funds to Iran, but also has ignored all of the sanctions on Iran, which stopped Iran from selling oil all over the world. Now they sell oil all over the world because of the Biden-Obama administration. And now their reserves have gone from 4 billion to 70 billion, giving them an enormous amount of money to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, and all sorts of enemies of America, as well as Israel. So Biden is guilty of being a significant factor in this happening. I can tell you, if Donald Trump was president, he would have continued the sanctions. Iran would be on the verge of bankruptcy. This never could have happened. And he's not getting enough criticism for this. And by the way, all Biden is talking about now is setting up a Palestinian state. What a disastrous mistake. Israel gave away all of Gaza to the Palestinian Arabs. You see what happened. Hamas took over, 30,000 rockets came into Israel. Now he wants the Palestinian Authority to take over Gaza, and as well as most of Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, and give them a state. He speaks about that regularly. He wants to reward this massacre by giving the Palestinians a state. This only encourages the terrorists of the Arab world, and Biden is doing a terrible disservice. We need more people speaking out against this.
In closing here, Mort, I was surprised to see Danny Danon, who I've met a couple times, write a piece in the Wall Street Journal, say that we as Americans in the West have a moral obligation to take the people of Gaza. What is your reaction to that op-ed from the Wall Street Journal?
Danny Danon is a good friend of mine. This is a terrible mistake. Major polls have shown that between 74 and 93% of Muslims in the Middle East are anti-Semitic. They hate Jews in Israel. Do we want more Jew haters coming to America influencing Congress? And by the way, Hayas has a major role in this. It used to be the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, now simply Hayas. They used to bring Jews to America. Now Hayas overwhelmingly brings only Muslims to America, people who hate Jews. Many of the people Hayas has brought to America, these Muslims, are involved in Students for Justice in Palestine and all of these rallies on campuses against Jews and against the Jewish state. So what Danny Danon wrote was a terrible mistake. We should not be bringing over people who hate Jews or anyone to America. And I can assure you, those Muslims from Gaza not only hate Jews, they hate America. We don't want anti-Americans coming to America. Danny Danon made a terrible mistake, and I'm going to be calling him and telling him so.
Mort Klein, thank you for joining the program, and thank you for defending Western values, even when it is difficult. And I want to make sure, one of the things that makes me the most upset is the moral equivocation between Hamas and Israel. That's just, there's nothing there. The Hamas literally means violence and discord in Hebrew, if you want to go back to its root. And that is the best way to summarize what they want. It is in their charter to kill as many Jews as possible.